We're trying to create tools and use AI that works around the human, not the human around the AI. We truly want to integrate our tool into already existing workflows. Get it out to the people, get it out to the user, but take their feedback. And in construction specifically, I think construction sometimes gets this bad rep that they hate technology. They don't hate technology, they hate the wrong technology. They hate being told what to do by people that have never stepped a foot on the job site and just assume they know their pain points.
Welcome to Built by Fire. I'm your host, Spence Parks. Built by Fire is about keeping the entrepreneurial fire burning through every challenge, setback, and season of growth. Built by Fire is where we have real conversations with entrepreneurs, high performers, and leaders. We break down the decisions, systems, failures, pivots, and lessons that help them build meaningful careers, businesses, and lives. We talk about leadership, innovation, tech, marketing, and more. Plus, what it really takes to turn your ideas into a reality. So whether you're building a business, pursuing a dream, leading a team, or striving for greater success, Built by Fire is for you. So let's jump in. Welcome everyone to the next episode of Built by Fire. We're here with Uzi today. Really excited to be with him today on the podcast. And he has a lot of extensive experience building multiple different businesses, a lot of different positions that he has held over the years. And we're really excited to get some business insights from him, entrepreneur insights, and a lot of different things that will help you as well as you're building your business or working towards different goals that you have. So welcome. We're excited to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
Appreciate it, Spence. Good. It's almost Friday, and so things are good. The weather's starting to get better in Kansas City too, so doing really well.
Awesome. Well, just to get started, tell us kind of a little bit about yourself and kind of what your career journey started out as and how you got to, your position that you currently hold.
Yeah, so I come from an immigrant family. My parents immigrated here from Pakistan. I was like 2 years old, moved to Kansas, and basically have called Emporia, Kansas home, and went and did my undergrad at KU.
Awesome. Love that.
Yeah. So Rock Chalk, and yeah, so went and did my undergrad there. Did a double in finance and management leadership, and I'd always had a passion for wanting to get into real estate development. That was something
Okay.
my dad growing up had a lot of real estate property. If anyone that comes from an immigrant parent, this whole idea of entrepreneurship and being your own boss is something that's really, it's the American dream. So
For sure.
kind of saw it from afar, and at the time didn't really see that. I didn't when I was younger, didn't realize that it was actually molding who I was going to become now, in the position that I'm in. But always wanted to work, like I said, always wanted to work in real estate development. And so I was about to graduate and had accepted a job to move out to Chicago to go work for a firm out there doing commercial real estate, I'm doing that broker route, and
Yeah.
had everything lined up, was ready to move. And then literally about a week before I graduated, I had someone reach out from a startup out of Oakland that was about to open up their second office here in
Whoa.
Kansas
Yeah,
City.
that's
Yeah.
like a cool surprise. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So it was like, like, what does it hurt? Let's go and just do the interview. What's the worst that's going to happen? Right. And did the interview. It's funny because they were originally interviewing me for like an SDR role. And I went in, I've always been someone that's really personable and, outgoing and just like, I'd say more extroverted. So must have done something right, because they called me back like, you know what, we don't want to hire you for an SDR. We actually want to interview you for an actual account executive role. We think you've got what it takes.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
So,
That's cool.
and so then went back in, did like the follow-up interview up here in Kansas City. And, that this is literally, I'm driving back to Lawrence to go to graduation ceremony. And then I'm going to take a few weeks off. And on the drive back, I get a call and they say, hey, we want to hire you. Like, here's the offer. We know we're a startup, but you'll have a lot of opportunity to grow. And so, I took the chance, something was telling me to, take the opportunity. And then I fell in love with it, fell in love with the startup culture, the ability to build something, from scratch. The funny thing is, my very first day at that startup, I walk into the office and it's a renovation of the office space. There's wires hanging from everywhere. This is in the middle of the winter. The heat's not working. We're cold. And I'm like, what did I sign up for? Like, is this like, am I being punked? Right? Is this like a reality show out of California that they're just like, they're like, we got you, but I fell in love with it. The ability to, come in and make meaningful impact from day one. So work there, move from sales to operations, more project management. That's kind of where my skill set really sits, is more operational minded.
For
So
sure. Yeah.
help scale out that operations team. Unfortunately, learned the bad side of startups. That startup, I ended up filing for Chapter 11, but then went and worked for another company that had just been acquired that did software for bulk construction. So worked on the implementation and project management team there. We basically automated quarry yards. So you see those gravel pits where a lot of these trucks go in and out of. We figured out a software solution to automate that, and then left there, and then was most recently at Homebase, join on their implementation operations team, and then kind of help scale that entire go-to-market strategy, built out our actual install guidelines. How do we, actually deliver and implement our software and our hardware, and how to exit there. We got acquired. And then, I know we'll get into more of it, but I was actually looking to get back on the VC side.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I took, I took 6 months off, and I was like, I have a financial background. I've done startups. I think I could go on the VC side, and that sounds kind of like fun. And was, talking with a lot of firms locally and nationally, and then just grabbed drinks with a gentleman here in Kansas City, and kind of he was pitching me an idea that he was working on for a project management solution, and I kind of counter pitched him on my idea of this idea, what is now Block and Mortar. And
Awesome. Yeah.
we basically said, let's do it. Like, let's go build this thing. And this would have been in August of 2024. So
So he's like
that's
telling
kind of,
you like, "Hey, come build this with me." And you're like, "No, come build this with me."
yeah, I was kind of like, I don't think project management's the way to go right now. There's so many project management software solutions out there. I was like, but where I do see a need with AI and real estate is on the development, pre-development side. And I know we'll get a little bit more into it, but we just kind of counter pitched him, and he was a executive at a large engineering firm here. And, you know, funny enough, like, he calls me, I'm driving up to Wisconsin for my father-in-law's 60th birthday. And he's like, you want to do this? And I was like, I hung up, and I told my wife, I'm like, I think I know what I'm going to do next. I think this is what I'm doing, but I'm not sure yet. So we waited till after Memorial Day. I
Okay.
got coffee, and it was like, we are doing this. This was actually serious. So it was,
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. That's really interesting how it just kind of happened like that quick.
yeah. I mean, I've always, I'm a big believer in this idea of like law of attraction. And I think sometimes you just take a chance, and you might not see the outcome right away, especially when you're in business, right? In entrepreneurship, like, you don't know what the end game is, but don't ever, like, I'm a big believer, don't ever turn out an opportunity, especially when it presents itself. And I wouldn't be in the position I'm in today if I hadn't taken all those opportunities throughout my professional career, right? At the moment, I didn't know that it was molding me to become the entrepreneur and leader I am today, but just always knowing and believing in myself and what I really wanted out of
For
my
sure.
career. I was always able to figure out how to get the most out of those, opportunities and situations.
Yeah, so I love what you said about attraction. And so at what point in your life did you start thinking of yourself as an entrepreneur? Was there like a certain moment, or was it
Yeah.
like a gradual thing?
My parents would probably tell you I've been an entrepreneur since I was little, right? I had a
Awesome.
paper route when I was in the fifth grade. I used to sell candy out of my locker in high school. Like, I just would always find, ways to just do something, right? But I think from a true professional standpoint, it really, I've always had aspirations to want to be in a leadership position, right? But in college, and I think, you know, sometimes the knock on college is we get so ingrained in the title and forget the journey of it, right? We see all these
Exactly. Yeah.
leaders that come back to the university and speak to us. And we're like, we want to be that. And we don't realize that it took them a journey to get to that, right? We just want the title, right? I want to be a
Exactly.
CEO. I want to be a CFO. I want to be C-suite. I want to be so and so. But it was when I got out of college that I realized that it was my drive. And I think some of the skill sets that I had not only cultivated, but just had a passion for, to do the stuff that most people weren't willing to do, right? And I think from an entrepreneurship standpoint, it's the execution that I would say sets me apart and sets successful, entrepreneurs apart. Everyone has ideas, right? We've had ideas since the dawn of human.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the people that actually execute on those ideas that end up making, meaningful impacts within their communities, within business, within whatever,
So
you know.
yeah, tell me more about the journey. So from what I've seen, it's the people who love the journey and embrace the journey, and who love the challenges that basically go on to have the greatest success versus the people who are like just focused on getting to the end.
Yep.
I don't know. Have you seen that at all, or what have you seen?
I mean, I agree with that, right? There's so many leadership books on it. I mean, if you look at some of the best, sports athletes of our time, right? The reason the greats separate themselves from the good are the ones that actually lean into the hard work, the journey to get there, right? And they actually appreciate the hard work. They're more focused on that than the actual end goal, right? Um, and I think in business and in entrepreneurship, that's such a key thing. You know, we've become such a society, and whatever reason you believe it is, we're so driven by instant gratification, but in business instant gratification doesn't happen,
Yeah, yeah,
and if it does happen it's not
definitely not.
sustainable, right? Like it's just not sustainable. So the only way that I've ever seen from, looking up to my dad and the businesses he's done, and then looking at other leaders that I look at mentors, is they took the long way, right? It wasn't an overnight success story. Now it looks like an overnight success story because we only see the beginning and the end, because
Yeah,
that's what
yeah,
the books tell us. We don't see the entire in between. I mean, even look at Steve Jobs, right? We just think of Steve Jobs as the creator of Apple and then the guy that walked out with the iPhone. But if you actually dig into it, he got fired from his own company, and look at the journey he had in between those years that made him the leader he was when he came back to Apple to be successful. I think we have to ingrain that into future leaders and future entrepreneurs, that it's not going to be overnight and it is going to be hard. But what in life, isn't worth it? The hard stuff is actually the one that means the most to you, because the fruits of your labor are even more sweeter. So I do believe just leaning into that and appreciating the journey. I always tell people when I mentor leaders is just be aligned in your why. Know why you're
okay,
willing to do this and why you want to do it, right? And it could be for whatever reasons. There's nothing wrong because you say my why is I want to be rich and I want to have financial, freedom.
yeah.
As long as you know that, then getting out of bed in the mornings, doing those late meetings, having to work multiple different roles makes it worth it, because you know what your end goal is and what your North Star is, and just be aligned in that and hold yourself accountable to it. So,
I love that. That's amazing. It's like having the why, I guess. So is that, have you had a moment where your why kept you going, where you thought about stopping something?
yeah, I mean, my why has always been leadership. It's to put other people in positions to be very successful, for, to help people achieve more than they even think that is possible within them. Um, and there have been moments, right? There's been moments where I've had to make decisions to leave teams I've built, and the reason it was so hard was because it felt like I was leaving my why. I was leaving the people and the team members that I had mentored and put into position. Now I was kind of bailing on them. But then there's also moments like even at Block and Mortar right now, you know, for the longest time I was a team of one, right? But what kept me going and what keeps me going is this ability and this idea that I can create a very successful technology company out of Kansas City that can offer people high paying jobs and give them the opportunity to do something very special from hopefully their home city or from Kansas City, and really leave a mark and a legacy behind. So I think that had always been my why growing up. And I kind of figured that out really early, is I love leadership. But I just had a daughter about a year and a half ago.
Oh yeah,
And
that's exciting. That's
so
awesome.
yeah, so she's 16 months old. And I think, any parent that's listening to this, you kind of realize that I'm a very motivated person, but the very first time I held her, I felt like I had unlocked a different level of motivation. And
Yes.
I remember messaging one of my mentors at the time, and he responded. He goes, Uzi, you know what that is? That's called legacy, right? When you
Yeah.
kind of put other people in before you in servant leadership, it becomes so easy to take the long journey, because you're so aligned with trying to just put people in the best position. So yeah, I would say, my why is just to leave, help other people achieve the most, help them become better leaders. And then obviously my family, right? Like to put my daughter, put my wife in an opportunity to be able to do whatever we want out of life, to give them the ability to open any door that they want. So
I love that. That's amazing. And you've already mentioned multiple times mentors in this short time we've been talking. So how important have your mentors been?
yeah, I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for my mentors. I mean, whether they know they've been my mentors, or whether,
Yeah.
it's someone I've seen from afar, or true mentors that I have a relationship with. They've, fundamentally, I've got a mentor that, I studied abroad, and he was very influential on the leader that I am today, right? He was one of the first people to call me out on my leadership style in college, right? I always thought to be a good leader, you had to be the loudest person in the room. You had to get up
Okay.
on the
Yeah.
chair.
Yeah.
Played sports growing up, and you always thought that was what the coach did, right? You kind of got the rah rah going. And I remember him calling me out and telling me, like, hey, that's okay style leadership, but the better style leadership is the leaders that are let the team and let the organization get the credit.
For sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was moments like that within my mentorship, even right now, some of our early investors within Block and Mortar, the best leaders in the construction space here in Kansas City. And I love to be a sponge, right? Just ask questions and take insights in and not feel like, I think sometimes we get afraid to admit weaknesses. And I love feedback. So I always want to continuously improve and always have that growth mindset. And the best way I think you can do that is to have mentors, right? People that have gone through the business world and done and been successful, learn from their mistakes so you don't make them, but also learn from their successes and
Yes.
figure
Yeah.
out what they did and put yourself in those positions, right? And so that was why, like, yeah, I mean, I am who I am today, and our company is where we are is because I had great mentors that opened doors for us, that got us in touch with the right people at the right time. So yeah, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for some of the mentors I've got in my career in my life. So
Awesome. I love that. And so you've been talking a little bit about Block and Mortar. So I'm going to have you, if it's okay
yeah,
with you, kind of go into like, kind of dig into some of the details on the
yeah.
product there.
Yeah, so the idea for Block and Mortar kind of started when I was at home base. I was collaborating a lot with owner developers in the multifamily space as the CEO there, and I started to kind of see a gap of how long it took them to make decisions before the construction even started in the pre-development cycle.
Okay. Yeah.
And and the reason when I started to kind of dig into it was because a lot of them were still using, outdated tools like spreadsheets and emails and text messages to gather all the data, and then they had to spend time, days and weeks going through that data to make sense of it. And so I kind of started saying, like, there has to be a better way to do this. And when, in 2022, when I would say the mainstream AI took off, right, when Chat
Yeah.
GPT
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
released, and everyone was like, "Oh, that's great! I can create recipes, I can create emails and thank you notes for families." What I was kind of seeing from afar was this ability to, what AI was showing me is now with the new computing speeds, because AI has been around forever, right? AI was here since, I
Yeah.
mean, it's artificial intelligence. We've had it since the 70s. It's really the computing speed that's changed fundamentally
Yeah.
how it's now become commercialized and brought into the mainstream market. For me, what I was seeing is the ability to take a lot of unstructured data, put it in an engine that then makes sense of it, and then puts it in a format that the end user can get insights from
For
it.
sure. Yeah.
And so then we quickly, that was the idea. And I started figuring out, how do I introduce this in a commercial use case, right? Not this, you know, novelty, but more as an actual workflow creation. And so we started doing that from get-go of Block and Mortar. Was the idea is, in real estate development on the pre-development side, how do we help do three key things? And the first one is, how do we help automate a lot of those tasks that take team members weeks, if not months, to do, depending on the asset type on the commercial side?
Okay. Yeah.
That's the first pillar. And then the second one is, how do we lead to better collaboration? And what we mean by that is, how do you bring a lot of the key stakeholders, whether that's your owner developer, your GC, insurance partners, banking partners, subcontractors, vendors, all of them to the table earlier, so we can all get our assumptions on the table before we get anything written in stone, right?
Yeah.
So
I
we
love that.
basically,
Yeah.
and then we believe that if we can achieve those two pillars, then the third one and the most important one is insights, right? Because then all that leads to insights for the human. And I say that because we're in the business at Block and Mortar. We're trying to create tools and use AI that works around the human, not the human around the AI. We truly want to integrate our tool into already existing
For
workflows.
sure. Got it.
And so within that, the insights becomes very important, is because now that becomes data that the user can use to make decisions on how, you know, and all that bundled up is, how do we mitigate risk earlier on these projects? What you don't want to do is take on a project that might end up costing you more money than you thought, and or you have to kill it because, it just didn't work out. And how do we get you to a quicker no? If the project's not going to make sense, rather than for you to take 3 to 4 months to get to the no, how do we get you to that no within minutes, if within days, if not minutes?
For sure. Yeah.
And that's
That's
kind of the
crazy.
idea.
That's crazy. So if they're doing something that normally takes a couple months in like a week, how much money will that save them?
I mean, it just depends, right? Like on how you quantify your own team's time,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
whatever, take two or three people's average, salary, put it
yeah.
in hourly, how much have we saved there? I think the bigger thing is how much risk that can save, right?
Okay,
Is
yeah, yeah,
the idea of in construction, there's one thing, I mean, it's true in life, but there's one thing that's undefeated, and that's time. Time adds so much risk to a project because the longer it takes for me to get my term signed and get into construction, I'm opening myself up to interest rates going up, cost of material, right? I mean, we live in a world right now where it's so volatile, where we don't know what oil prices are going to be tomorrow, let alone what steel prices might be, right? And so all that fluidity and ambiguity opens up any real estate project to risk. And
yeah.
so the quicker you can greenlight the project and sign your agreements and lock a lot of those things in, that's the better way we think you mitigate risk. Because, we're very careful because sometimes just the idea of moving fast doesn't mean that's successful. Sometimes when you move too fast, you introduce risk. So we kind of walk that line and have that healthy balance of going quicker. Better automation allows us to save time, but saving time in a manner that actually adds value to your company, not saving time for the sake of saving time.
Got it. That's interesting that this came up because over the past couple months, I've been talking with a few OSP engineers or people who work with fiber,
Mm-hmm.
and they've been telling me about that same problem that they've been having where they'll have these designs and they'll put them out there and they'll just start going, and then like they get into the project and they go to actually do the build and they're like, these designs don't even work
Yeah.
for like what we're supposed to put in the ground. Like they run
Yeah.
into obstacles that like they didn't even plan for, and
Yep.
then they come out over cost and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So
Yeah. And I mean, that's true for if you're doing multifamily, retail, data centers, office. I mean, there's all these risks that are innately going to be included in construction because we just don't know. But there are a lot of things that I think can be cleaned up, and that's one of the things that we're trying to fundamentally change in the way that is done. Is we think we can use technology as a tool, building out some of our agentic features and helping kind of learn the workflow. The way we go to market is very fundamentally different than some of the larger companies have gone into market, where we're very slow. We listen to our user. We want to understand the workflow, and we build with the end user in mind. Like that's very important to us. Is to these guys have been doing it for 40 years. We don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. We just need to
yeah,
understand what we can kind of make the wheel go faster and make it smoother.
yeah, that's so cool. And so what I love about your story is that you saw the gap. It sounds like you didn't really overthink it. You just saw the gap and you're like, hey, I'm gonna fix it. Because I know a lot of people when they see a gap and they want to create a product or a business around it. I mean, yeah, it's important to do research. It's important to do
Mhm.
product validation and make sure that that gap is actually what you're seeing and test your assumptions and all of that. But like, how much of that did you have to do before you knew like, hey, yeah, this is a real problem and
Mhm.
I know I'm just gonna go for it?
I mean, we were, I think, a good mix of both. I'm someone that really listens to my gut, and that's what makes me, I think,
Got it. Got it.
a good entrepreneur every now and then. But also, it has, I'm not gonna lie, it's also bit me in the butt a few other times. But we did do a lot of good product interviews. I mean, we spoke with our user as we built it, and we were open to feedback. Like we didn't say, "Oh, you don't know how to build technology. We're not going to take your feedback." We truly listened to a
Got
lot
it.
of our developers that we had within our network. I think what was fortunate for me is I kind of came from that world, so I already had some baseline subject matter expertise, and then I also had the connections to start getting additional subject matter expertise to truly understand the pain point. I think where we were a little bit different and what, I don't come from a product background, but I think what made us a little bit different was with my style. I'm a big believer of let's just get it out there and then we'll iterate against it, right? Like no product's ever going to be perfect.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I'd argue my iPhone is still not perfect. But I've learned, right? Like it's probably 98% as best as I can get, at least in my opinion. I bet there's some Android users that would disagree with me, but
Yeah. Yeah.
the idea though becomes for me is like get it out to the people, get it out to the user, but take their feedback. And in construction specifically, I think construction sometimes gets this bad rep that they hate technology. They don't hate technology, they hate the wrong technology. They hate being told what to do by people that have never stepped a foot on the job site and just assume they know their pain points, right? And so that's
Yeah.
why we did a lot of, paid pilots, proof of concept deals. We did a lot of even just partnerships early on, and we're still in the process of doing some of those today, because that's the best way for us to get the real user feedback to solve for real world problems and make sure that when we do deploy this tool, it actually adds value out of the box and isn't just another software solution that these guys are paying licenses for that nobody ever touches.
For sure. I love that. So at your previous company, can you think of an experience you had at one of your previous companies that maybe it was a challenge, maybe it was a learning experience where when you went to start your current company now, you thought, oh, I'm not going to make that mistake again, or I'm going to make sure to skip this or do that. Just something that you took with you from your past experience that you think probably saved you a lot of time.
Yeah, there was something that I learned at the very first startup that I worked for was always thinking for scale. And I think that's what makes me, that made me, at least, I would say a good COO. And then as now, I think put me in a position to hopefully be a good CEO is I always thinking of if I'm solving a problem, am I solving the problem for today? And if we grow and, let's say we have more employees and we have a larger customer base, will this problem come back even bigger? And can I solve for that today so I don't have to go resolve it later down the road?
Got it.
Right. So is it a band-aid solution? Sometimes you just have to do band-aid solutions. That's what makes startups is you have to move quick and you just have to find a solution for today and worry about the bigger problem tomorrow. But I always think of it in that and try and have a healthy balance of like, what's our sales process look like? How do we do demos? How do we track all that data within a platform, that we trust in a CRM? That way, as we scale, we can see the data and actually make insights from it, right? And I think a lot of startups make that mistake is early on, they're just go, 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 go. And then when they kind of have to mature and they realize like, we can't just keep making decisions off of gut anymore. We need data to drive it. And they're like, we have a lot of data, but it's so unstructured that then they have to spend weeks, if not months, introducing processes, introducing CRMs, introducing project management tools to go clean it up. So I think my lesson that I learned was start from day one and just start doing it the right way. It'll not only help you as you scale, but it also make your life as a solo entrepreneur, if you're doing it for yourself for a few months, a lot easier because it keeps things clean and they're not just in a spreadsheet somewhere or, sitting in a Google Drive elsewhere. So.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So it's really a matter of like looking out ahead and solving those problems ahead of time instead of just like, oh, I'll deal with that later. So,
I mean, I think there's an adage that people say all the time, right? Like, what is like dress for the position you want, right? Like, but use that same kind of idea in business, like behave as the business you want to be down the road, right? If you want to be a Fortune 500 company, start behaving like that now, putting those processes into place, If you want to be considered like a large tech company, look at what they're doing and see what you can do today within your organization. And look, there are some things you won't be able to introduce because that's what makes startups, but there are things that I think you can start introducing earlier, such as processes and data tracking and a lot of that early on that will make, when you scale, it'll make your life and you'll lose way less sleep because you've already kind of introduced those processes that grow as the company grows.
Got it. Can you think of since you've started Block Mortar, can you think of any challenges that you've come across that ended up being like a lot bigger of a challenge than you thought it was going to be at first?
Oh, there's a few. I think the first one was, one was doing fundraising. We thought, with having someone like myself, having the board we had, that we had the right leadership team that has done multiple successful startups. Not only myself, but, some of our other investors, board members have done multiple startups, had multiple successful exits. We thought that leadership team would be enough to go get funding to, really blow this out. And we realized really quickly that wasn't the case in this new market. When you're trying to raise funds, it's revenue. So
really, okay.
Yeah. So that really was kind of eye opening, and that was a lot bigger challenge than we thought. Fortunately, we, just closed our funding round, and we were fortunate to get a few local construction firms that are well established to come in as investors. The other one was, I think, it's more so, it's not having to re-educate the users. I think there's so much AI conversation going on right now in the market. It's trying to make sure they understand what that truly means and how do you quantify success with AI. That's been the biggest challenge, right? It's like we talk to a lot of firms and they all ask a lot of great questions, right? And they're like, yeah, we love what you're doing. But then sometimes we get that feedback of like, yeah, but it's a little early with what you're building. We want you to get a little bit more mature. And it's like, but don't you want us to build with your workflow in mind. Like if you want me to go build this thing in the dark,
Yeah.
how does that solve your problem, right? Like, don't you want to be a part of the innovation? Like, don't you want a voice at the table? And in my mind, I thought everyone would love that, like, that we were thinking about that. And it actually hasn't, I would say it's kind of lukewarm. It's starting to get better now, but like
Okay.
hearing some of that feedback is like, it's been a little eye opening that I thought the people would be more receptive. I thought leaders and, executives would be more receptive to that idea. And look, I get you can't just bring in, a company that's like super infancy, but we felt like with the way that our business model was and the solution we were providing, that the idea of building with us alongside us would be something that would get people excited. And it has a few, but not as many as I originally had thought.
Do you
Just
think
because there's
part
a
of
level
it
of
is
AI.
like the level of like time commitment that they think they're going to have to put into building with you or helping you with it?
I think I've got a thesis that I think is a little bit of that. I think they're worried that they're going to get pulled away from their day to day. I think the other part of it is we're living in a world right now where a lot of these large firms are spending an absurd amount of money on AI custom build outs, right? Like I think OpenAI charges like $10 million flat for any kind of custom model. And I think people are starting to get a little sheepish on like, does that truly lead to an ROI? Like, if I invest that kind of money into an AI solution, like, what is the output? And I think that was the biggest thing that, as I talk to leaders, is like knowing the true ROI that you get from your tool is going to make it more successful than just introducing it. Um, there was an article that came out in the Wall Street Journal at the beginning of this year, right, where there was a few executives that said, yeah, we didn't see the value of Copilot last year when we introduced the Copilot AI tool in our organization. But my rebuttal to that is like, did you know what you wanted out of that internet?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
You thought that you were going to introduce Copilot and it was going to help your team members with automating emails, and you thought if you did that, then they would work and do other tasks. But what the employee saw was, great, I got 2 hours of my day back. I can go home early, or I can go stand at the water cooler a little bit more. So it didn't lead to a direct increase in productivity, but maybe it gave your employees a better work-life balance. That is still a win. But
Yeah.
if you as executives don't define the metrics on which you're going to judge AI by, then AI will never give you a return on your investment. And so that's what worries me. I've said this, and I'm very transparent. And is I don't think there's an AI bubble. I think there's an AI pricing bubble.
Okay. Yeah.
There's some of these large firms that charge $1 million a developer, and some of these large models that token prices. You hear of companies that blow through $50 million in a given month on their organization using, their agent. Like you'll never get that return on investment, right? But the reason that is because this is where I go back to the first point was you didn't build with them. They built it in the silo and then they introduced it to your organization and you had to figure out how to work around it. Now
Yeah.
you're seeing companies create policies on how AI data gets shared. So again, you're having to work around AI. But I thought AI was supposed to be this smart tool that could learn very quickly. So why
Got it.
can't
Got
it
it.
learn to work around me?
Exactly. Okay.
And so that's where
Yeah.
we're fundamentally different in our model is like we truly believe we understand the workflow. And that's why we're so niche, right? In that real estate development, we understand what pain points are, what the workflow looks like today, and we're building tools within that. We're not just an AI platform, we're a real estate development platform. AI is just one of our feature sets.
Awesome. Love that, Uzi. There's a lot of people that want to get into entrepreneurship, but I've heard a lot of people say not everyone has what it takes. What is your opinion on that? What are the minimum requirements for you to be like, yes, you should try it out. You should go for it.
I mean, I think everyone getting into entrepreneurship, there's multiple different avenues, right? That doesn't mean you have to be the one that carries out the execution, right? You could be the creator, the idea person, or you could be the executor, right? So I think it's
Okay.
one, understanding your own strengths, right? I do believe everyone has the ability to be an entrepreneur. I just think they need to understand at what level, what kind of entrepreneur they are, right? So are they a technologist creator because they like to do coding and they can't sell it? So then you can still create a business, then just go hire the right people that can sell it.
Got it. Got
Vice
it.
versa, right? Like I'm not a technical founder by any means. I don't have any technical CTO coding background, but I knew that about my strengths. So I've surrounded myself and got the right team members in. So I just think it's one, being mindful of your own strengths and weaknesses and then filling the gap with those weaknesses. But I believe anyone has the ability to create something, right? It's the appetite for risk. Some of us don't like the idea of going out on our own and having to essentially create our own paycheck. We'd much rather go build someone else's business and just get, a normal 9 to 5 paycheck for ourselves. So, and there's nothing wrong with that by any means.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't anyone listening to feel like I'm calling them out. It's, you have to know yourself. But I do think deep down inside of all of us, there's that fight or flight, and we all have the fight in us.
Okay.
But life taught us to kind of subdue that feeling or like not really lean into that fire. Uh, that's up for the listeners to decide. But I do think everyone, even listening or anyone out there, has the ability to be an entrepreneur. You just kind of need to figure out your strengths and weaknesses, and then you can really go build whatever idea, business, whether it's a big business, right? And that's the other thing, right? I think when we think entrepreneurship, we think of Elon Musk becoming a trillionaire, and everyone puts that
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
end goal. There's some entrepreneurs out there that have created a business for themselves that makes $150,000 a year, and they're running it by themselves, and they're happy doing that, right?
Got it. Yeah, I noticed you mentioned, someone who has a fire inside of them that's driving them forward. And that's part of the reason why I named this podcast Built by Fire. Because that's one of the number one things that I've seen is if you're going to go out and do it, you have to have something driving you, like
Mm-hmm.
that, kind of like what you talked about, like the
Yeah.
why of
Yeah.
why you're doing it. And so I love that perspective of like you can do it, but you have to want it. Like
Yeah.
so for someone who's on the edge, I think that advice that you just put out there could help a lot of people who are listening to this to
Mm-hmm.
just realize, all right, I'm going to do it then, to see someone like you who's been through that and to encourage others,
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, you don't need any specific level of, like, you don't need to be a genius. You don't need to have this. You don't need to have, you know, 10 years of experience in this. If you have an idea and you believe in it, then you should go for it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I think there's a poem that I like a lot by Marianne Williamson. What is your deepest fear? If anyone's watched Coach Carter, it's that famous scene
Yeah,
where Timo Cruz stands up and he kind of says it in that, right? Like, and I think the reason why I think that poem is so powerful, because I think there's a line at the end of it is like, it's, our biggest fear is our light. That's what frightens us, is that we're going to shine too bright and we're
I
going to
love
make other
that. Yeah, I've
people
heard that.
feel, and so it's I think really leaning into that. It's, in that poem she says, right, I think it goes like, it's, we ask ourselves, who am I to not be brilliant? Like, that's the challenge. Like, why can't I be successful? Right? It's maybe life has taught us that, but we've kind of put those guardrails on ourselves, and it's up to us to then take those guardrails off, right?
Yeah,
I'm notorious, and my wife hates this, but like, you know, I'm a sucker for quotes and these motivational things. But I always tell people, like, as cheesy as it sounds, like when I'm sleeping is when I dream. During the day, anything I say, it's a goal. And I always have to correct my friends. They're like, Uzi, you dream. And I'm like, no, I'm not dreaming. These are goals. These aren't just things I'm throwing out there. These are things that I aspire to eventually get done. So hold me accountable. When I tell you I'm going to do something, hold me accountable. Just think I'm a dreamer. I'm a goal setter, right? And I think it's a
that's
mindset
awesome.
switch,
That's
right?
awesome.
So that's what I tell everyone is like, there's no reason you couldn't be an entrepreneur. You just got to get over the fear of it and what is holding you back and figure out how you solve for that. And then now you can really take that leap of faith and let your light shine, right? And be what you're meant to be in this world. So
That's amazing. Yeah, I also love quotes too, and it's so true. Like you hear them a lot, and they can sound cheesy and all that, but it's some like if you have a list of quotes that you live by that motivate you, it can definitely keep you going on,
yeah,
difficult times or remind you why you're doing it. So I
yeah.
love that. And so for young people who are just getting started, you mentioned, a lot of times they underestimate um the journey, like what you're saying. So for a young person, what are some of the best things that they can do for themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Like once they learn to have the mentality of like, hey, this is going to be a journey. This needs to be a
Mm-hmm.
long-term goal, not a short-term thing. So once they have that in place, where's a good place for them to start?
So the three things that I was telling you on, especially when I talk to young college graduates that are getting into the real workforce, is one, college has taught us the ability to problem solve, and that's it. I have nothing against higher education. I actually love higher education. It's a very deep passion of mine, but it's teaching us problem solving. So don't put
Yeah.
those guardrails on thinking I'm a marketing major, or I'm a finance major, and all I can do is a finance job. All
Yeah.
I can do is
Yeah.
just like, no, you learn how to problem solve. Go find someone that's willing to give you the opportunity, and don't expect to become a leader first day. It's like what we've been talking about. It's a
Yeah.
journey. And then surround yourself by people and always be coachable and always be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes.
That is the biggest thing I can tell people is do not, when you realize you're getting comfortable, you've stopped growing. So always put yourself in those positions. Take those opportunities where you might not feel like you're ready to take on that promotion or that different job, or some of those are the responsibilities. But what you fall back on it, I know how to problem solve. Be a problem solver. You might not have all the answers, and we live in an era now where answers are at our fingertip. You could
Yeah.
figure it out pretty quickly as long as you have the drive to figure it out. So those are the things that I say, like, again, when you're coming out, know your why. And it doesn't mean you're going to know it. Your why could always be evolving. Mine evolved when I had my daughter, right? It's an always evolving why. So don't feel like you have to know it right now, but be coachable, be willing to be uncomfortable and take risks in life, right? Like, especially when you're young, I think I was guilty of this too, is we feel like we have to have everything figured out. If I could go back to myself in my 20s, it's like, you don't have to have everything figured out. You have so much time
Yeah.
ahead of
Yeah.
you. So learn, make mistakes. Those mistakes are what's going to make you the leader or put you in those positions. And it's like I started my story with, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in if I didn't have some of those, things happen to me. And in the moment, I couldn't figure out why this is happening, right?
Yeah.
Why was I being put in these positions? Why were things not working out in certain scenarios? Or why was I given these opportunities? And it all kind of boiled up. And even today, I mean, compared to most of my peers, I'm relatively younger, on the younger side of as a leader. I'm only 34 years old. I don't even know what my end story is going to look like, right? But I'm
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
willing to evolve and put myself in the room with some of these other great leaders that I now have the ability to learn from. That way, maybe 15 years from now, I'll look back and be like, wow, I thought Block and Mortar was the end, and I had no idea that was just the beginning, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That was chapter 3 of my book, and I'm still writing chapters. So it's always evolve, and just be comfortable in that, right? Like, be comfortable in the uncomfortable is the best thing I can tell anyone is, that's where growth happens, and find yourself in that growth spot constantly, and you'll see how quickly your career goes and how many more opportunities you get because you're willing to go to that networking event by yourself when all your friends are out socializing and grabbing drinks, or you're willing to take
Yeah.
that trip with your boss and be in that very uncomfortable situation, but now you're getting one-on-one time with them, or you're willing to ask for feedback from a peer where it's going to be uncomfortable and they might give you criticism, but that's criticism for improvement.
Yeah.
Put yourself in those situations and always want to keep growing, and watch how quickly in startups you jump up, you climb
Yeah.
that career ladder, but it's just true in life. Like, you'll see how quickly you start becoming a better version of yourself.
So Uzi, I can feel and I can sense your energy and your positivity just for life in general.
Yeah.
So how did you get to the point where you have that positivity and energy that you carry with you every day? Were you always like that? Is it natural to you? And for someone who doesn't
Yeah.
have that, how do they get that?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I've always had the want to be a leader. I think I've learned the type of leader I wanted to be over time, right? It was
Yeah.
something that's important to me, but for it's not to get like super philosophical, but we get one chance at this thing called life, right? So, like,
Yeah.
make the most of it is what I always tell myself. And there's
Yeah.
days where you get up and you're like, dang, I wish I could just sit on the couch and watch Netflix or watch a movie or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
I'm big on just being mindful of myself, and how I present myself and how other people perceive me. And I want to be perceived as someone, because it's important to me, because that's who I believe I am, is someone that will truly care for others and put them in a position and motivate them. Even right now, my hope is that anyone that's listening, if this even motivates one person, then I've done my job to help the community become
Amazing. I love
better,
that.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that's what keeps me going, is if I can affect anyone in a small positive way, whether it's close friends, giving them the push they need to go out on their own and try their own venture, whether it's family or even coworkers, giving them the ability and giving them the belief that I back them to take on that project or take on that
Yeah.
opportunity. Just giving them that little bit of motivation they need. It's amazing what human spirit can do when they just get a little bit of someone behind their corner cheering them on. I always tell my daughter, and she's only 16 months old, but every morning when I wake her up, it's a little thing that we've created between me and her is I tell her, you know what today is? It's a great day to be great. You get to dictate how your day goes. Don't give
Yeah.
anyone else that power, right?
Yeah.
Don't ruin your day because someone cut you off on the highway going into work. You just gave them the power to ruin your entire day. When in reality, you could say, you know what? I'm not going to give them that power. I'm going to be mindful and realize they might have something going on. Why should I ruin my day and go into office and I'll let it snowball and make my day negative? It's a lot of mindfulness. It's something that's very important to me is being self-centered and being mindful. So it's taken a while, being
Yeah.
practicing mindfulness and all that, but
It
it's helped me become the person I am.
it's almost like when you go through your day, you have all these little small opportunities to react to things or not react to things. And those small opportunities can be something that you can turn into something negative or positive, right?
Yeah.
Or influence others for good, like you said. So it's almost like it takes the same amount of effort to put good out into the world as it
Mhm.
does
Yeah.
negativity.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, you're dead on, right? It's you choose how to react to certain situations. And I mean, it is a learned skill. I think people think that that just happens naturally. I mean, if you actually look at the study of mindfulness and the actual practice of mindfulness, it does take time to kind of train yourself to take a quick second and go, which path do I want to take, right? My natural reaction is to get angry, or do I just take a deep breath and walk away and not let it ruin my day? And I think I'm not saying I'm not someone that doesn't get angry and I don't get frustrated. I'm not that perfect, but there are moments, right, that you pick and choose how you want to end the day. And when you go to bed, can you honestly answer yourself, did you do your best to make today a great day? And if you can say yes to that, then there's no one else that really matters in that scenario, right? And as long as you can be honest with yourself and put whatever that greatness for you means, then try to achieve it, right? So,
awesome. So Uzi, from my experience over the past, I'd say 5 years talking with people who are starting their careers, there's a lot of young people who are frustrated with the job outlook, the job prospect of trying to find that first opportunity. And so what advice would you give to them so that they can stay positive and eventually, land that first job? Or maybe it's a job or maybe it's starting something out, but how do they stay positive when you're receiving a lot of rejection and feel like maybe the degree they got or the studies that they've taken
mm-hmm.
haven't given them the results they expected?
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's human to get frustrated. Right? You work really
Yeah.
hard, and
Yeah.
everyone comes out of college with dreams and aspirations, and when then you get hit with sometimes it's that gut reality check, right? And I think what I would tell people is always believe in a bigger power, right? I think I said it earlier
Yeah.
in this podcast was like I'm a big believer in the law of attraction. When you put positive out, positive somehow finds a way to come back to you. So just always stay aligned that somehow it's going to work out. But even in rejection, figure out how you can take that and make that a positive, right? Ask for feedback. Where can I improve? What was it about me versus other candidates that kind of led you to go that route, or not take me on to the next level? And then find mentors. Like you would be shocked, you know, how many there are great leaders out there that want to give back. They just, they're so busy, they're not going to go proactively. But when people reach out, like I would love to grab a coffee, right? So one of the things I would tell young people is find someone and shoot them a message. Like I've had people reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I've actually hired people that way because I'm like, I appreciated that you just reached out to me and messaged me and said, I'd research your company. I love what you're doing. I would love to grab coffee and just learn a little bit more. And now how can I get involved?
That's
Right?
amazing. That's
That's
awesome.
that hustle
So they
culture,
just
right?
did something that
Yeah.
simple
Yep.
and it's what got them in the door.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And that's where I would say, like, to all the young people, right? Like don't let one no become, the roadblock. That's just another thing you're in the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Live in it, grow from it, right? And then you'll look back and be like, I wouldn't have gotten this position if I would have gotten the other one, right? There was that silver lining that you don't see in that moment that you only see in hindsight, but always keep evolving, always keep growing, and just know that there's something out there. And look, like it, it's also not just going to be handed to you, right? Like that is the journey. You have to go earn it. It's going to be hard. So be proactive, reach out, always learn, find ways you can network within the community. You know, it shouldn't start once you graduate. I would recommend doing it while you're still in school, start networking, finding mentors, and figuring out where you really aspire to be. And surround yourself with those kind of people. And it's amazing how much different your trajectory can be when you have that right ecosystem around you. So
Awesome. I love that, Uzi. So, you're at Block and Mortar now, growing your company. Um, has the growth been as quick as you've expected?
it depends on which hat I'm wearing on a given day. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes I have to take a step back and like where
yeah,
we have come in the last, year and 8 months, or was it 9 months or whatever it is, we're about 2 years in. I have to remind myself that is pretty impressive. We have a product that's actually a product in the market. We've created a business plan. We've hired a few people. So that is exciting, but I'm also someone that just isn't comfortable with status quo, right? So I always want to
yeah,
be pushing the buck. So if you ask me, like I would love to be even further along, especially in the era we live in now where, you're seeing people that are very lean teams, hit major revenue milestones. So I would love to be further along, but I also challenge myself every now and then to take a step back, right? It is so easy for me to get caught up in the day-to-day grind of where I'm trying to get us to. Part of the journey is also appreciating the journey in the moment. So like
yeah, yep.
taking step backs at major milestones, celebrating small wins here and there helps me do that. As once we closed our funding round, there's a lot of startups that don't even get to that milestone. So for us to even get there is very special to me.
Yeah, that's so exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
getting your
that's
first
like,
funding round for your own startup.
yeah.
I bet that
Yeah.
was, what did that feel like when it happened?
It was reassuring. It's always nice to get the validation, but I'm someone that moves like I celebrate and it's a brief celebration and I'm on. It's like, okay, now I gotta go do the
Yeah,
next. Now, how do I make this be the leaping point to the next major milestone, right? And so I'll be honest, maybe there's probably something in there that I should dig into a little deeper why I don't celebrate longer. But it was a special moment. It was something that I was very proud of. I am very proud of it. It took a lot of people, a lot of mentors. Took my wife having my back at helping be the rock while I built this thing out to get to this milestone. I would have never gotten here without my core group of friends and family and mentors. But now I turn that in myself, say, okay, now I need to deliver even more for these people, right? It goes back
exactly.
to servant leadership that they believed in me and I can't let them down. So that's that
Yep.
fire, kind of talk
Yeah.
about fire. That's that fire in me that goes, okay, great. I appreciate everyone patting me on the back, but I'm already starting to run now because I want to get to that next milestone to make this even bigger and better than what it can be. And so, yeah, like to answer your original question, I am excited where we are, but I definitely am not satisfied because I think we can be way bigger and better, and that's kind of where I'm trying to get us to.
Awesome. Hey, Uzi, it's been so great. Everything we've been through today, I just feel energized. I feel excited. I feel motivated.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you wanted to highlight or share while, people are watching and listening?
No, I mean, I'll always kind of leave with right, like just remember your why. I think that's a biggie. I use that in interviews. When I interview anyone, I always ask them what the why is. I share the why of our company, and I want to make sure they're aligned with our company's why. So I would always tell people and challenge you, if you're listening to this, is to take a few minutes and kind of ask yourself, what is my why? What am I trying to do all this for? And you'll be shocked when you are honest with yourself. Ask you that question in honesty and answer it with full honesty. That could be the unlock that you're looking for. That might be that moment that you're like, what? I'm not doing everything towards my why. This is my why. And now how do I get to my why? I need to do things different. I need to make some changes. I need to go network or whatever that might be. Take that leap of faith and start my own company because now I know what my why is. Um, yeah, I'll just tell that to people, right? And always just believe in yourself, right? Because if you don't believe in yourself, then why would anyone else believe in you, right? So you have to be your biggest critic and biggest cheerleader and always know that if when you hit roadblocks, be the problem solver and solve for them and you'll be able to overcome any obstacle. So
Awesome. Uzi, is there a way where people can follow your company or see what you're up to if they want to connect with you or just follow you through your journey?
yeah, I mean, they can definitely message me on LinkedIn. It's just Usman Wajid. We also have our Block and Mortar account. It's just Block and Mortar, Block, and it's actually AND Mortar. We're on LinkedIn, and yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to message me, I'm happy to. If anyone's looking for a mentor, I'm always happy to chat with people. So if anyone wants to reach out and say, "Hey, can we chat?" and happy to talk to people and hopefully help people achieve even more than they thought was possible in themselves.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Uzi. It was great to be with you and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Spence. Appreciate what you're doing with this podcast.
Awesome. We'll see you.